Hello, welcome to Low-Code Campfire from Plant and App. This is the episode number 190 from April 11, 2025. I don't have anything specific, big topic planned in advance, so we're going to call it Open Lines Friday. I am Dale Warner, Head of Support for Plant and App, joined capably by Patrick Anderson, Technical Success Manager for Plant and App. And together we'll spend the next hour with you exploring all things Plant and App. This is a gathering that we do for the community to talk about what's going on behind the scenes and also to talk about the things that you're facing as you do low-code development. It's all skill levels welcome event. So beginner to expert, please come, bring some problems, be ready to help with some answers. We record all of these and put them out on YouTube at youtube.com/plantandapp. That's our channel. So you can go there, subscribe, make sure that you find out and get notified of every episode that we publish. We do this same agenda week by week. We will do introductions because we're a friendly group, and then we'll go around the campfire. We always do first call on anything submitted in advance. After first call, anything you want to talk about, we can get into some of these other areas, and then after an hour, we'll go into Afterglow. That's where we turn the recording off, get ready to enjoy the weekend, and just hang out with each other for a few more minutes. So the main thing is to engage with us. We are glad that you're here. You can submit questions or topics for this in advance, either by using this QR code and following the form, or by sending an email to support@plantandapp.com. I don't believe we have anything that you've submitted in advance, but I have always got a couple of topics that we can get into if we don't get dive into first call. So with that, hello everyone, happy Friday.
Good morning, all.
Hello, everybody.
So cheerful.
Absolutely.
Got a guest.
Oh, look at that.
This is Skunker because of the white stripe. Right there it is. He looks like a skunk. He's often not too far away from wherever I'm programming it. So he
Cute.
Oftentimes when we meet with the CEO, Bogdan, his cat will come by and demand that he be part of the discussion.
Oh my goodness.
Well, good. What's who has a first call?
Well, I have some very simplified things that I would like to jump into, but I'm going to stand down because I tend to be the first one to jump in, and I don't want to eat up any important stuff. So, Ben, Don,
We'll put you down for second call.
Yeah, put me down for second call.
All right.
I think the same way, Jerry. So I'm going to step back myself.
All right. Well, Ben, you're next in line. If you don't, I'll jump in.
Off the top of my head, I don't have anything at the moment, so feel free.
Okay. All right. So the first one is on last week's call. Patrick was able to duplicate it. We did not do a tech support ticket, Dale, and we probably should have to remind everybody. How do we best proceed on the init event not being able to call the repost data action? We don't need to explain why it works or don't work. Patrick knows what I'm talking about, and so do you. But do we need to go ahead and fire a ticket for that, or did we just all agree that it doesn't work and somehow magically Bogdan and his team would find out and hopefully rectify that for us at some point in time?
Speaking of the boss, nope, it's a different topic. All right. So yeah, we did spend time on that. Is that where we came to the conclusion that it works in Bootstrap 3 but not in Bootstrap 5?
That is correct. And we don't have to rehash it all. If anybody wanted to watch it, they could watch last week's campfire and see what we were talking about. But I'm just following through in the event that if Dennis and I need to get a formal ticket in, it is debilitating us just a little bit.
If you would open a ticket, that'll give me a place to start, and then I'll be happy to open that. And then Yeah, beyond that, I know that we're working on, okay, so this is kind of continuing some of our discussion from last week. We spent a lot of time talking about feature enhancements and wish list kinds of things. And um, I'll just tell you that I moved several of those into, we talked about them and moved them into the queue to get worked on in this next version. And so there's two or three other things having to do with Bootstrap 3 incompleteness that's part of that stack. For example, I think it's on grid loaded was one, and the integration with Tabs Pro was another, where Bootstrap 5 being integrated so that as you're changing tabs, that activities can take place. So we're already doing some of those things, and we could potentially put it on that same list to get done. But that's going to be. I'm trying to figure out your. You said it's already causing you some discomfort, and
Well, only in the fact that I know it's a known, well, we now know it's a known bug, and I just want to follow through protocol to get it into the channels to be rectified either in a 1.2 hotfix or even sooner, or even if it has to be 1.27. That's all I'm doing, Dale, is just making sure that we're aware of it and it doesn't get swept under the rug. And that's what I mean by the discomfort. We're functioning. And we're all, I believe everybody on this call is going through the whole Bootstrap 3 to Bootstrap 5 migration, and this is going to take a little time, and that's all I had on that. So I don't want to burn up any more daylight on that topic. Dennis and I will put a formal ticket out.
Happy to follow through.
Okay, so moving on. I just want to be schooled by the professionals on this. The difference between the token query string and get. Those are not synonymous with one another. They are slightly different in how they think and how they work. And if I could just be pointed to a past show or to a film or to a document, I'm just trying to educate myself. I've been slowly but surely using the get token to extract something from the query string, more so than the query string token. And going forward, a few days ago, I was tasked to write a piece of software where I have a listing and a form on the same page. And the listing, when it clicks an edit button, is to open a form in a pop-up in which I'm going to pass query string parameters into. And I learned real quick, the get token does not work in that circumstance, but the query string token does. And that sent me on an adventure, realizing that those two are not necessarily the same. Am I saying anything, Dale, that makes any sense at all?
Yeah, so I'll just back up and say that I think you're schooling me. If you had asked me, are they the same, I would have said yes. So sounds
Okay.
like
I would have too.
If they were intended to be yes, then great. And then I would point out a bug that can be fixed real quickly. If you are using the pop-up form and you are passing query strings into the pop-up form, once you're in the form, in the init, and you want to do something with that form to initialize it or whatever, the get function will not work, but the query string does. And so when I looked at, and let me tell you where this exists. It exists in an action called open form on popup, I think is the wording for that. So an application, Patrick, would be where I have a grid with rows on it, and I have an edit button on each row. And when you click the edit button, you want to pass the record number to the form of which it's going to edit.
Mm-hmm.
In the description, it says that it uses the query string token to pass that value to that pop-up form. And then that pop-up form works perfectly with the query string, but it does not operate with the grid. And
I guess I'll need to test that because I'm pretty sure that I've
I've used Git in that very instance, if I'm understanding you correctly. So you pass it to the pop-up, and then in your initialization events, you get that value from the query string. And I'm pretty sure that
Sure.
I've used Git in that very circumstance, and it did work. So I would need to test, but that's the circumstance that you're saying where it's not working.
Yeah, it failed on me. It didn't
Hmm.
throw an error. The Git just acted like it wasn't. It was not aware of the query string. And again, a very simple scenario for all of us that are just typically programming, as you can imagine, on the listing row, I am passing we'll call it an ID or the record number of the
Hmm.
record I want to edit. So when I
Yeah.
get over to the form in my pre-init, I want to do a SQL search on where product ID equals get product ID or whatever. And it just couldn't find it. But when I replaced it with query string, worked like a charm. And this is version 1.26.303, whatever our latest and greatest hotfix was this last week that we put out. So I'm up to date. But I think
And just to be
where it may,
clear on this, it's not something that's that you're seeing as a regression. Like it's not something you had existing set up and then suddenly it stopped working.
no, it was a brand new
Okay.
application that I was going to use the get token as opposed to the query string token. Kind of in my mind mentally have stopped using the query string token and replaced it with get, and I found a place where it did not work. And again, to be very clear, it's when you use the action open form and pop up and
Hmm.
continue execution. That's close to what it's called. And it's in that action, I believe, is where you would post a query string value. And I was calling that action from the listing module.
Now, did you use the continue execution
I
action
did.
without anything after it? Because
Um, that's a great question.
it's possible that might be the issue. I think that you'd want to
Okay.
use the stop execution, like Dale's showing right here.
Okay. I think it would be fun for me to look at my code and see. I don't know why I would be doing any other executions after that. I'm opening the form pop-up. I'm handing the power to the form. No, I don't think so, unless I'm maybe doing a data source refresh after it. I'm going to look while Dale's building and again, this is not mission critical and it's not urgent and there's nothing really wrong as much as I was just like you, Patrick. I've always been led to believe that the get and the query string were pretty much the same thing.
So this demonstrates that they are the same thing, at least in my test, right? So what I've set up is we have a form, and the form has a button. The button is doing a display error message. The display error message is getting the query string and the record ID. Excuse me, it's doing it by query string and it's doing it by get. So we're getting an on-screen display of that. When we open it, we're opening it with this edit inline, this button that's open form, pop up, and stop. It's opening that form pop up that I established. It's passing record ID, and the thing I'm passing, this happens to be a user ID. So we have, number 9 here. If I click on that and view the record ID. Now this is interesting. I didn't reinitialize it, so it's getting old parameters.
Yeah.
So fix the bug. That would be reinitialize form always.
Yes. Yes, I found that to be required as well.
So let's see if that's better. And I'm just going to refresh the whole thing. So we'll do number 14 here. And we get both of them.
Looks nice.
And if
Looks
we
nice.
we get the different one. So I haven't captured what the lightning in a bottle that you have.
Okay, so on your setup, I apologize. I left your screen and looked at mine. Patrick, I am using the continue execution, and there are no other actions after that. So, and this is back on the listing module, Dale, where you actually called the pop-up.
Can you switch it to a stop execution action? I have a feeling that
Absolutely.
that'll work.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll see, but I have a feeling it might.
So it again, it begs the next question that I apologize for not being more intelligent on, but the difference between continue execution and stop execution, is it fair to say, Patrick, that you would select stop execution if there's no other
Yes.
actions in the stack?
If you select continue execution, even if you don't have other actions in the stack, there's still things that'll happen. One of the things is that if it's a form, it'll actually submit the form, and so you'll get a page refresh. With a grid, I'd have to test and see, but other things happen. So stopping execution means it'll do exactly that. It'll open the form in a pop-up, and then it'll stop doing anything, and that's all you need at that point, is for it to open and stop.
Okay.
Luckily, it's
Very-
it appears to still be working in this case.
Yeah, it is.
I did let's make sure I picked the right one.
No, the one difference I can say that maybe this has from what Jerry's doing is that Jerry's getting the query string value in the initialization. I don't think that should make a big difference, but and you're getting the query string value when you click that button.
Let's try that.
I mean, that's a.
I agree. It's
and,
the reason why I'm laughing, Patrick, is because
Yeah.
that's exactly my scenario on my repost data thing. It's only in the init that it works fine behind the button, but it doesn't work on the pre-init. So
yeah.
who knows? Stranger things. But I'm going to first try and make mine fail by I'm editing my pop-up form in the events to not use query string, but to use get and see if that actually works. Take just a second to test, but
let's see. This we need to actually put on.
Yeah, you'll need to. Yeah.
Actually, I can do it this way.
all right. I hope I have not wasted your time.
This is
I'm
useful.
I'm having issues trying to reproduce it because I changed my query to a get and it did indeed find the record. So that starts to lay heavy on my credibility, which
Well, it's
I can
always
go ahead
nice
and tell you
to-
right off the bat is not much.
It's always nice to prove something, though. So.
Yeah.
Even especially with something that has little distinctions like this.
Yeah. I'm gonna try one more time.
So we're getting it on the way in here,
Mhm.
and we're getting it after the fact there. So both
Cool.
working, and let's try number 20 down here. That's working.
And what up if you pop and continue? Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that was working too. Cool.
So we're back to we think that get and query string are the same thing, and if you find any credible evidence capturing that, we'd love to see it.
Can I
Absolutely.
add something?
And I will play with that while we're continuing this call, but let's move on and talk about some more important stuff because
I think Mark had one. Well,
Yeah, something that I'd like to add that might come into play here, and that is that I've noticed that if I put something in the query string on a pop-up that already exists in the query string of the underlying form, then it causes confusion and it doesn't find what I was hoping to send it. So like if you got the same ID already on the page and you're trying to send the same ID in the query string on the pop-up, it doesn't find it.
ooh,
Oh
here
yeah, that's a good one right there. That's
And
made
I'm
me
there it is,
crazy
you
a
got the
few times.
commas.
Yeah, It does the
Is that a
it
1 comma
concatenates
2
them.
going on?
Yeah.
That's the symptoms.
Yep.
So
So one doesn't override the other. It gives you a
Gives you both.
yeah.
And it's not acceptable with your code that you're receiving on the open.
so yeah, simply put, don't reuse the same ID that
Query
might
string
be present in
parameter.
query string.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's so this has been a great discussion, Cherry, because I just learned something.
I've experienced this before. And yeah, I guess there's a scenario where it could be useful, but I'm not sure what it is.
So so the form is getting the original record. It's let's see. I think what we're saying is that this action is passing all of the query string that you're coming or has access to all the. It's opening the form and passing this. The form has access to all of the original query strings, so it's getting both. Okay, so while we're talking about this, I ran into a nuance that's slightly different. I was doing, instead of a pop-up form, I was doing an embedded form. And so I'm on page A, and I'm embedding a form that's coming from page B. That form coming in from page B doesn't have access to the query string. So I was assuming that it would, and so I was getting nothing. You have to find another way to pass information into that form that's being embedded.
Yep, I've seen the same thing with a client.
It looks like it. I mean, the form appears to be on the page, so
Right.
you would think that it would have access to the query string, but because it's actually, I think at the end of the day, it's rendering that module.
Yeah, and you have
HTML. What is it? A window, a view.
iframe.
iframe.
Yes,
Thank you
yeah.
so much. See, that's why I'm going to miss you next week. That since it's rendering an iframe, the iframe is actually rendering that other page, which doesn't have a query string. You have to pass it in the embedded or in the embed string, or find some other way to pass it. All right, that was a good one, Jerry. What else? Who's next? Don, you said you had one?
Sorry, no, I at least meant to say that I usually think that mine take up the whole time, and so I hesitate to jump in and ask something. I don't have anything particular.
Okay. And now I see Ben has his hand raised. I missed that and was asking about, this is 10 minutes ago, the on-page events. Yeah, so we've already done.
Yeah, you got that. You covered it already.
You got another one?
Yeah, just quick question. I don't know if anyone does this, but the and I know we spoke about this briefly a while ago, moving over to Bootstrap 5 from 3, but this is one of those scenarios where it behaves differently, and that is in an action grid. In Bootstrap 3, or the old system, Plantin basically gave us the solution of using an event called dnn_sf.events.on, and then you pass it grid loaded, and then you could pass it a function, and it would run that every time a grid updated its data. I would use that to color cells in the grid. based off of the data that was found inside it. Worked perfectly in BS3. And again, this was the way we were told to do it. In Bootstrap 5, that doesn't function. So my question is, does anyone do grid cell coloring? And how do you go about it that it's a relatively easy and reproducible result?
Great question. So let's look at some of the things that, so we have a grid.
Jerry, weren't we doing that on one of our reports?
Yeah, we were. That was in Bootstrap 3, but it was a very old school approach, Ben,
Mhm.
from back in the day that the cell was I checked the checkbox allow HTML, and then my SQL query that built the data that I was loading the grid with was actually injecting an HTML, I don't know, maybe a P tag or a div tag or something where I was styling it or setting the background color to that. So that cell was consuming HTML and making the grid look
Yeah.
really nice.
I'm trying to
But
avoid
yeah,
sending full HTML returning back on that response. I mean, basically, because the grid can have a lot of data. If you're starting to send
yeah,
full style tags,
yeah,
then the data that's coming
100%.
back is getting larger and larger and larger because it's a lot of repeated stuff. So what I ended up doing was I did send back some code, well, a identifier, put it that way. So I have some hidden code or text in there. So it would say like red text or orange background, red background. And then I have JavaScript previously that basically said, if the cell contains the following text, then do that coloring. It shrunk the amount of data significantly because I didn't have to have the entire div with the style tag of background color, whatever, this, that, whatever. So it just made it a lot smaller and a lot quicker to send that data back.
100%, Ben, 100%.
That's
And
what I'm trying to continue forward.
I'm almost trying to look, can we do some CSS? Can we identify the cell, coordinates and just CSS it somewhere? And that would have been a better way. And the last thing I'm going to say about that, to your point, is all of our clients want some sort of an Excel export on these listings, and
Mhm.
it was exporting the HTML code, so it kind of
Mm.
rendered that column pointless in the Excel spreadsheet. So I
Mhm.
had to bring it in un-HTML'd, if that's
Mhm.
such a word, and then an HTML version of it, and it just created a mess. So
Yeah,
it wasn't the
that's a really
glamorous
good
way to do
that's a
it.
really good point because that's one thing that I didn't even consider that, yeah, you're right. If you go to export the data, you're actually exporting the data. And if that's
Yeah,
part of the data,
precisely. Yeah.
So, I think, Dale, if I'm not wrong, that first of all, I have a couple comments. One is, I think that the thing that you're talking about, Dale, if I'm not mistaken, didn't we just talk about prioritizing that for the on-grid loaded? Or,
Correct. On-grid
yeah.
loaded
Mhm.
is slated for 128. I have it in front of me.
The other thing I was going to say about that is that I think, Dale, I'm going to add, if you look up, you don't have to right now, but DevOps 3994, which is something I've talked about on this call before, and that is a request I put in a while back to allow people to it's basically will build in conditional styling for the grid, so you can style by row and by cells within a row. It'll allow you to have that uh, that those styling options. And I don't think that this is an outrageous um, um, task. So at least I don't, I'm not sure a developer's even looked at it yet, but I think it's worth maybe, Dale, for us to put that on the list of things to possibly get into 128.
So the just thinking about what yes, I think we should pull this into product. But I was just trying to make sure I understand it, what it would be, what it would look like for users.
So the conditional styling per row would be in the settings of the listing, and you'd be able to choose base that on a row token. So so something from the data record would allow you to do styling for an entire row, and then the conditional styling for for TD or
So,
TH, that would be within the column settings. So it would say if the value is this in this column, then style the TD or TH this way. That's the idea
okay.
in a
Well,
nutshell. Yeah.
let's put this for discussion.
Guys, related to that, that you were just talking about, I had previously done a request that said, give us something that we can latch onto in the columns, rows, and cells. And by that, I mean, give me an ID for each of these,
IDs.
or give me a class
Mhm.
that I can insert so that I can identify each one of these pieces. And I would use it with JavaScript and with CSS to style each piece that we just talked about. So in addition to making it conditional right there in the grid design, I would also like to be able to address each piece separately after the grid is loaded.
So just to clarify, what what we were just looking at, that I think that is what you're talking about, Mark. It's actually not, you're not putting styles in there, you're actually identifying classes. So you're adding a class, and the class would be based on tokens. So it could be a very granular class, and then you would define that class elsewhere. So I think it would actually accomplish what you're looking for.
All right, that sounds great. I've wanted that. I've thought of it many times.
Yeah.
I wish.
Is this the part you were talking about, Patrick?
Yes. Yep, exactly. So you would just name the class with tokens that have to do with the record, and then that would give you a granularly defined class that you could say.
Right. So
Do
now
anything with it.
the all the styling would be handled by the CSS and not by the content of the cell. Yeah. Cool. We'll bring this back up. It's on the list to talk about.
Jerry, didn't you have an issue with our enrollment forms, maybe with the AuthNet page part of it when we were trying to convert to Bootstrap 5?
Yes and no, Dennis. We had not touched the enrollment forms, but on the auto billing system, I went through all that yesterday. And much like today, everything seems to be working really good. So everything in our auto billing section was converted to Bootstrap 5 yesterday with great success. So no, I don't have a question about that at this point in time.
All right. Don has raised his hand.
Yes, Jerry inspired me. I remembered that I did have a question about something in Bootstrap 5. We just converted a bunch of, we converted the skin from 3 to 5, and then the form started giving the error that, hey, you've got the
Got to be all one way or the other.
got a mix, right? So changing grids from legacy to table. Um, the legacy looked great. The table now The problem is in a typical grid description, there's a top section, a grid layout. There's a top section where you could put the title, you could put a button, and you could put search and filters. What if you don't want any of those? That top section still stays there. How do you get rid of it?
If you turn all that stuff off, it will go.
Yes.
So if you disable search, if you
Right.
disable filters,
Right.
turn off the title,
Right.
that you'll get just a grid.
Not me. I've turned all those things off, and I get the little loop. I'm latest and greatest. This is 126. We just went through all of that.
Yep. So just double if any of those are on. So filters.
Even if nothing is filterable, but if the filter button is checked, if I know the search is off, I know the title is off.
So I'm going to hit enable filters, and I believe it will come back.
All righty.
Even if there are no filters. Yep, you get. Is this what you're seeing? This.
That's
search?
it.
Yep.
So
That's
it'll go away if I've unchecked everything.
Just uncheck enable filters. It should go away.
I will go take
There's
a
three
look.
of them. Enable
I'll-
filters, enable search, display title.
Got it. I will go and take a look and see if that's what's going on. Cool. Thank you.
Good. Love it when it's that easy. All right. If anything comes to mind, raise your hand or stop me, whatever. But I'm going to do a couple more. Many of you have already encountered this issue, but Chrome and by extension Edge released an update that we didn't interact very well with it when it comes to our configuration page. So you'd go to configuration and it would just be in a stuck loop trying to load the page. So with that, it's a browser change, and we reacted to the browser change by releasing 126.303, which fixes that particular issue. You can also, it impacts version 125 and 126. You can also go around it by using Firefox or Safari or any browser that's not based on Chromium. Yeah, you can also install this update and it'll fix it. There's another one that we are aware of that impacts on 126. Let me find, I didn't bring the text in here, but the impact is that when you're filtering, when you're in a, well, I'll tell you what, I will find the words. Give me just a second. Let me find them.
Does the glitch impact Plantain app before 1.25?
Not that I'm aware of. We have no reports of that.
Thank you.
So here's another one that is impacting Chrome, Edge, Firefox at least. And this is when you've got a filtered listing. And so up in the URL, you've got a lot of the filters are showing up in the query string. Users that are on that page and then hit the F5 refresh, for whatever reason, all the filters get lost. The query string resets back to the base query string, and then the filters go, the listing is no longer filtered as you would expect it to be. So we have a fix. It's actually it's in the QA or UAT phase. It's just basically one short of being, we're going to test it and then we're going to release it. But if you're experiencing that, there's going to be a fix for that in 126 as well. And this is just yet another impact of I mean, the browser, I believe this is related to the change that was made at the browser level. It was working before and now it's not, and we're reacting. So it's a little bit of a, yeah, sometimes things happen that are outside our control and we get on them and fix them, but wanted you to be aware, particularly of the, well, I guess both of them are important depending on your use case. So questions on that one? You'll probably see that in a newsletter from us as well. We're trying to get out the word that this update is available and will solve the problem. But it looks like, I mean, when you just browse to configuration and nothing comes up, it looks like Plantain app's broken, and it's something that you can avoid just by picking a different browser and or getting the fix. Yeah.
Do those also affect 127? Or maybe that's the next slide.
No, to our knowledge, it does not affect 127. So I don't know what was specific about those two, but no, it should not. And I'm sure any code, I mean, just our normal process, any code that happens in 126 will get rolled up into 127 anyway. So that may be why it, I don't really know if that's why it doesn't or not, but anyway. So 127, just remind you, anybody that's participating in that, the beta continues. It's on the community.plantainapp.com. There's a 127 beta. Just my one thing that that I had found. So if you have any feedback, this is the spot to report it. Just come in here and hit add feedback. Tell us what's going on. So anyone with any questions related to beta or how to participate or any started down that path?
I haven't started, but I plan to.
Well, good for you. Thank you for the help.
How do I participate? That's my question. How can I have access to that to participate? I have the Persic platform that that Bogdan and I put together years ago that allows me a non-mission critical place just to play, and if it flies all to pieces, Dale, I'm not going to call you. So how can I be a developer for that, or a tester?
So that I think the one you're talking about is on our infrastructure, right?
Probably, yes.
So I mean, there's kind of the answer is different, but let me start with the simple answer.
Okay.
If you send an email to I believe it's product@plantainapp.com. Let me double check this. In 127 beta, yes. If you reach out to product@plantainapp.com, I will help you with whatever your scenario is. But
okay.
I believe your particular scenario is that you just have to.
Right. I'll put the URL and stuff in the email, but it's a license that we were using to teach my son Ryder how to program, right. And that's where it just kind of sits there. And so anytime I am doing mission critical work, I'll first run over there and see if I can make it happen. And if it works good over there, then I'll bring it back to production. It gives me a nice place to play. And so I would love to be involved. Love to be involved. I know what to do.
It's really pretty simple. Basically, you would just upgrade all the way at least to 120. Well, you get to 126, and then there's a switch that I can flip for you that says you're participating in the beta, and then the upgrade to 127 will appear for you. We kind of have that one hidden to keep people from going to it until they need it. Once we flip the switch, then it's just the normal upgrade process, and now you're on 127. And there's some other scenarios we could start a new beta, or if you want to do it on site, there's all kinds of different possibilities. But for you, I think that's the process, and shoot it to me, I'll take care of it. Thanks for playing along. I was in a meeting earlier today and found out that our topic for Low-Code Cafe on Wednesday will be sending emails with SendGrid. We are already, our newsletter is going out by way of SendGrid now. Very efficient process to send out emails, and they do a great job of tracking the opens and bounces and undeliverables. And so, I mean, that's their specialty. And so if you're going to do sending a bunch of emails and you don't want to do it with our send email action and your SMTP server, we'll be covering how to do it with SendGrid. So that one ought to be interesting. Any questions, let me know. I had a support call yesterday, and it just was worth talking about. You know, we have the IMAP trigger, the ability for you to set up an automation job that's watching an IMAP box and retrieve the mail and process it. And the client had a problem, and it turned out I had the identical problem, and that is it was working fine forever, and then it just quit. And it quit. The one that he, I mean, the error that he reports, it's a failed to authenticate with IMAP server, which is essentially saying that his IMAP server was rejecting his login, right? I'm trying to authenticate so that I can figure out what mail to deliver, and it wasn't working. And what I found particularly, he and I were both using Google-based services, Gmail, whatever the G Suite account is. And when receiving an IMAP, you're giving it a username and a password, and every now and then Google just decides that it's going to remove that access. They really don't like these older programs or whatever. They're putting security around. I don't want to characterize it, but they really want to make sure that if you're using a username and password that you intend to be doing that so that it doesn't, I assume it's so that the cut down on spam and things like that. In my case, I was using an app password. I don't know if anybody's using Google and knows what this is, but essentially it's a process where you can get a password specifically for your app. So you, instead of logging in with a password that you pick, you log in with a password that they pick. And once a year, they seem to delete that password out for, I mean, I've made record now year after year, 3 years in a row, sometime in late March, it just disappears. And you have to go and reestablish the password, and then it is working again. So just thought I'd mention as a support thing, if anybody is using IMAP, if anybody's using Google credentials, that I don't think there's, I'm guessing the best way to avoid it would be at 11 months to reauthenticate, get a new app password and use that. And then that one would probably get a 12-month lifespan. But it's kind of inconvenient. I wasn't doing anything differently, and all of a sudden it stops working, receiving my email, and the client the same way. Does that ring a bell for anybody, or is it just good to file away?
That has definitely hit me several times.
I went and searched my inbox to see if they sent me an email that said, hey, we're going to cancel that app password, and I couldn't find one. So
No, there isn't one.
I think they just, you know, they set a lifespan on them, and you got to know that it's going to happen.
I read a reference that said that Google allows you to connect that way for an unspecified amount of time. And so, you know, I don't know what that unspecified amount is, but in my experience, I think it changes. And I don't know the logic behind it. So sometimes it takes a long time, other times it's 3 months or 6 or 9 or 12. I don't know. It's at their pleasure.
Well, yes. And so in my case, you can set a very slow clock by it. It seems to be once a year. So I think I might be able to get ahead of it if it was mission critical, but by doing it at 11 months. But that's just a guess. I've never tried it.
Well, this is especially troublesome if you are setting up connections to a client's email, because you may not actually have login credentials, or they might not want to let you keep login credentials to their email to get in there and change settings.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of trouble to get this fixed every time it happens.
True, and it's also one of those, if you don't have some proactive way to test for it, it's the absence. All of a sudden, I quit getting emails in from this thing, and I didn't. You might not realize it, whether it's 2 days or 2 weeks or whatever. It's like, oh yeah, that's not working. So
On that, do your connections get to go out there and get a token from Google to be able to access? And the reason I ask is I was just implementing this in the past week to get to a user's calendar, and I noticed that the payload coming back, if depending on how I accessed it, included a expire date on the refresh token that you use to keep refreshing things. Where once, during testing mode, it had an expire date, and then also once we switched over to a live user credential, then the expire date went away. I just wonder if when you have the app password, if that comes back with an expire date.
So when the app password gets established, and actually, yeah, when the app password gets established, it just comes back with a password, and it doesn't have anything else with it, and so you're signing on. Our trigger only accepts username, password, and we don't see the dialogue that happens back. So at the low level, so potentially the payload for that interaction could have it, but I'm not aware that it does.
Yeah, because I got, like you, I got burned by it when the refresh password that normally is undocumented that it expired, and then all of a sudden it didn't work. And when I found out that in a test mode they send a refresh pet token expire time, and then later on, once we went into production, that went away, and I did not use the app password method. I used user credentials. I didn't know if it mattered.
For what it's worth, just anybody using Google, app password used to be something that was listed on their security page, and now it's not, and you have to know about it, and you have to be set up for it. If you search for it in the Google account and you have two-step verification turned on, you can get to app passwords, and of course it makes you do more security. But once you get to app password, you just specify whatever the name of whatever you want it to know it by. I call mine Service S 2025, but if I called it ABC and hit create, it gives me a password that I can use, and then you just use that as if it were your password. But it doesn't tell us how long it's going to last, or and I'm sharing it with you guys, so don't share it with anyone. But yeah. All right, moving on. I did a campfire contribution, thought it might be useful to somebody, so I'll mention it. we were talking about in our last week about how the page selection in our drop-down box for redirect to page is not very friendly. And so in writing that up for our developers to use, I developed a SQL that would produce a nice hierarchical output of pages. And so it has, the full path to a page, and then when you click it, the result is the page ID. So the SQL to do that is here, and if anybody wants to see their pages in a hierarchical way, thought it'd be useful to have that out there.
Thanks, Dale.
Absolutely. Hopefully we'll implement something. I mean, it could be our data source could be based on this query. So, hopefully I've just done all the work and the developer just has to implement this. But if you can imagine this as our page dropdown, be able to pick out your page according to the structure of your menu would have been nicely alphabetized. How nice would that be? All right. Yeah, and then on feature requests, I just wanted to, I've kind of already mentioned we are, the ones that we talked about last week, several have been advanced into our pipeline to get done in 128, and I will be advancing more. So progress, hopefully that when we get around to 128, you'll start to see some of these things pop out.
I got a quick follow-up.
Yes, sir.
I did see that the enabled filters was checked on the grid listing, and when I unchecked it, I got rid of that header. So thank you very much. That was all there was to it.
Yep.
And
Good. Yeah, it's a little bit implicit, I think. So
yeah, there was nothing that was filterable, so I didn't think about that. I said, oh, I guess I should have just checked it off just for completeness sake that I'm not filtering anything. So why enable filter, whatever that function is underneath. Quick follow-up to it is how do you change the color of the border and the title from the default green?
that is a good one and an easy one. It should be the default green of, I'm sorry, which one are we? Oh, I got one moment. I'm stumbling around here. So the color like this, the title is,
right.
Notice it's matching here. If you're using Page Builder, it's going to base it based on the UI settings, and you can pick whatever your primary color is, that's what it's going to use. So if you
Right, this is a custom skin.
okay. So then there's going to be some CSS behind it that you're going to want to pick and use.
Did Page Builder just show the CSS that's involved?
I don't know. I don't think so. Yeah, probably if you generate primary color, probably this PB color is the one.
Oh, okay.
And let's inspect here and see what we've got. So it looks like it's this. Yes, if you look at, I'm selecting here, and you see it's page builder wrapper, whatever is providing a color of this. So it's the color for this this element, whatever way that you want to select it.
Got it. So I'm doing that in the head of the module, the DNN module. Is there a place I could put it into uh,
Yeah.
the grid?
Well, for defining a class, you would typically define it as in the page CSS. Actually, I'm stumbling around a little bit here. In the settings, you should be able to define a class, root CSS classes. So pick up
Right.
class.
So you could do X, Y, Z, Z, Y, H2, like that. Yeah. So yeah, yeah. In your definition, you would define it because that's an H2, the title there.
Oh, I had an X, Y, Z, Z, Y. So let's do that. So it's something completely doesn't exist. So then if we inspect this thing, that if we added I might not be doing that right.
Maybe you have to make it important.
Yeah, might have to make it important. Yep. There you go.
Oh, thank you. Nice.
Got it.
Where did that go? So give it a class. So that's the purpose of that root CSS class, that you can assign your own, and then you've got something to tag. And so then whether you want to assign all your grids to that and then put that in the CSS for the site, or whether you want to just make it be specific. If you're trying to style all of them for the same way, then maybe you just do it that way. You come up with a class that you use for all your grids, and then you can control it at the CSS level.
Got
And
it.
don't forget about page class files. Those work also. So the tab ID.css.
Which you can also, oh, yes.
And if you wanted to do it just for that module, you could put it in the container header.
Which I think is what he said he was doing.
That's what I'm doing now, right? But the grid settings page for the root CSS said legacy only.
Yes, that's an error.
Oh, okay, got it.
Is that an old error?
Is that an old error?
It's a legacy error.
Yeah.
We have learned to ignore those for sure.
Cool. All right, so we went to overtime. I'm going to call it here. Hang around for a few more minutes if you would like to join us for Afterglow. Otherwise, we'll see most of you next week. All right, thanks everyone.